And good morning, Vietnam. No. Yeah. Welcome to the new episode of the French Bishop Chesscast. I'm joined here by Master Chess Dojo. My name is Rogan Joe Sloan, and we're talking about all the chess news of the month that we were off. We are not joined today by Chess Chopin because, well, he's got a life, and that's a good thing. So, we're gonna just start off with some banal chatter about weird and wonderful things. I don't know if banal is the right word. Don't know what it means, but there we go. So, John, what have you been up to of late?
Well, besides besides today's 9-hour stream where I played in the title, gained my customary rating points, fortunately, with some decent performances. But I find that it's very tough to keep the mindset properly over a long period of time. The titled arena is 3 hours long. It's like at various moments, I definitely felt like I was losing it, and I had to resettle myself and focus. And that wasn't easy at all. And despite my better efforts, somehow I managed to pull together, another rating gain and prop myself up nicely. Although I haven't gotten back to where I used to be over 2,200 on Lichess, I find it profound that all of these non-titled players, there are so many non-titled players who are above 2,200. Like, they have some outrageous ratings. You've got candidate masters who are like 2,500 on both servers in a way. Like, that's why I guess Kramnik and others are like wondering
And
how these
Masters,
players and they play in the title Tuesday, right? So it's like they've got this outrageous rating. FIDE Masters with outrageous rating, almost equaling or surpassing Levy and others who are grandmasters to a certain extent. Although I did find that in today's titled arena that basically the players that I'm competing against also, the vast majority of the title players also seem to have trouble with the clock, which I perennially have. And so therefore I can play a really, really good game, and then I throw it all away in the last 15 to 20 seconds because of the pressure of the clock with no increment. They have 3-0 and they have 1-0 and so forth. And I know the titled Tuesday at least has a respectable 3+1.
Yeah, I do
understand, but I'm not entirely positive of that. But in today's titled arena, yeah, Daniel Naroditsky finished third. I think Nihal Saran was playing and a few others. I guess I'm going to wait a day for the result to be posted to find out the identities of the winners. But it's just crazy. Nihal Saran was a fan favorite.
The population of India is great indeed.
That I saw.
Yeah.
Oh, the future is bright. I think they have 7 players rated over 2,700 as of the other day. And Anand commented on it on one of the social media platforms. It escapes me as to which one it was right now because there are so many. But he was like happy that for who was it that passed him? Oh man, I'm drawing a blank all of a sudden.
I forgot too.
Terrible of me.
I was like, yes, I know this one, John. I know this one. It's me. Oh shit, I don't.
There's so many of them.
It's not Nihal. It's not Nihal Saran. It's not Vidit, is it?
It's definitely not Praggnanandhaa.
It's not.
It's not Vidit. So that leaves only Gukesh, I think.
We should have just picked the last one we were ever going to pick,
right.
and then
now that I think about it, Darush Gukesh, number 8 in the world, Gukesh. Anand has slipped to 12th, and Praggnanandhaa is just behind him in 15th place. So in the top 20, the Indian players are doing pretty well with the 2 or 3 representatives. Gukesh.
There's just a lot of chess talent coming out of India. There was a Perpetual Chess podcast episode where they were talking about how Europe is losing something like tens of thousands of rating points each year whenever a big team goes, whenever a massive team of like underrated prodigies go over. And there's so much talent there that they're just underrated, and the pool is just too good. That when they go to a less intense environment, they gain massive amounts of rating points. But oh no, yeah, they've got the weight of
it's brutal.
They've got a massive amount of people that they can draw upon. It's got to really help them,
Yeah, at the bottom of the list, I think for India, barely over 2,700, you have Nihal Saran. I think he's the latest addition to the 2,700 rated club. He was like 26 and change before. Our guys, he was more or less always there in Vidit, right? And I think at the top you had Gukesh, Pragananda, Anand, and at the bottom you have Aragaisi, Nihal Saran. And Pentala Hare Krishna is also in there, yes. Pentala Hare Krishna and Arjun Aragaisi at the bottom. It's really a tough crowd, over 2,700. But I used to experience the same thing when I traveled to Norway. I mean, I lost all of my FIDE rating points to these Norwegian prodigies who they're definitely not, they weren't 16, 17, and 1,800 FIDE.
Just refuse to play any kids.
Chess.
Underrating, refuse to play them.
For the rating to catch up.
Yeah, just nope.
Right?
Yeah.
But
how sorry,
FIDE rated
I was going to go completely unrelated on another topic. How goes your chess book, John? Where we got to sell out just a little bit in terms.
I actually have several projects going on Chessable that I've been working on. The primary one, of course, is the one from beginner to winner, basically to intermediate, an express track for players to go from having started out and being introduced to the game and so forth, and then mastering the skills necessary to basically clean up. And I've always maintained that the only reason why anyone's rating is below 1,000 is that they're just not seeing their opponent's moves. When students tell me that they're really good at chess and that they know how all the pieces move, I try to correct them and say, you know how your pieces move, but they just don't take into account the opponent's ideas
their
and
opponent's knight is just invisible.
And therefore, they lose material to random tactics. And it really is. They just don't consider it. Young Norwegian champion Ulrich Olsen, who was in New York when I was tutoring him, once had a score sheet where I think he wrote down 15 to 20 moves, and they were all his moves. He would write his move in the whites column, and his move in the blacks column, and his move in the whites column, and his move in the blacks column. And never did he actually register on the score sheet his opponent's move for a period of more than a dozen moves, you know?
I don't even write my
he just didn't
down.
see those moves. He only registered his
say.
moves. And he accurately described how he was down so much material in that particular game, of course, because he's not registering any of his opponent's moves. I can't tell heads or tails. So he gave me a synopsis, basically, that the moment he was under 5 minutes on the clock, because I don't know if it was a game 30 or a game 45 or whatever, but the moment he was under 5 minutes on the clock, his opponent shoved the score sheet aside and tried to outblitz him, and with the extra material,
the world is truly brilliant. I mean, at least he's using his time. I mean, that's one win.
Yeah, Thinker Teacher, I think, outlined in a recent social media post that he just didn't like the fact that you dedicate an entire weekend to classical chess and you'd play 4, possibly 5 games across a weekend. You'd spend hours accumulating small advantages and then throw them all away at the end. So you basically, the brutality of losing a 5-hour long.
No, as much as I wanted to disagree with Thinker Teacher on that one, I was combatively getting ready to disagree there, but I actually agree with that one. I don't like classical time controls. I like more of a rapid time control where you can play a couple of games without being, because the difference between me and other players who play classical, they're not better than me. They just They have the ability to care about what's going on after an hour. You know, so they've got the ability to just sit there and actually. It's almost a war of attrition at some point. It's like.
Mm-hmm. I remember overlooking a simple combination to win a game in a Chicago Open tournament, and I was playing another young master of sorts, and I just moved too quickly when I realized that he could have, he transposed the move order and could have lost on the spot. And because I played the natural course of moves, I didn't win the game. Right after, a move and a half after the position had passed, I realized what just happened, and that I had like rook takes c2 on the black side of a dragon, and his position would have been devastated.
You have quite a topical saying on this.
I was so bothered by it, of course, that I went on to lose the game.
You've got quite a topical saying on this.
You know,
natural moves lead to natural disasters.
And it's like brutal. That's right, and you have to steel yourself against just playing the natural first move that you see. Anybody who wants to improve at chess cannot play the first move that they see. If you play the first move that you see, or the first move that you're inclined to play, it will usually be the move that is your rating. It is your strength. It is possibly
but it ain't going to be better
than you. At best, it can only be barely stronger than your rating. That's the first move. Yeah, you have to dig deep for better and better concepts, ideas in every single position. And in order to do that, you have to have that motivation and willpower over a long period of time. And by doing so, then you're actually going to bring your rating up, because your game will actually be exhibiting better concepts and better moves than the first one that you would be inclined to play. It's possible, obviously, that the first move that you were going to play is the correct move, and you have to settle for that. But you must force yourself to look for better.
Quite true. Something I've got to completely work on. Just I've got to work on my chess. I keep saying I want to work on it, but then I'm like, do I really? Another episode of the TV show will always supersede me. So I'm gonna have to actually put my nose to the proverbial grindstone and do something about it. So, some of you may be wondering, Rogan. I've gone and cut John off again. Goodness me.
Yep, that's all right. No, I was going to say, just to finish that one off, I finally did do some studying for myself. I had been doing some studying for myself on periodic occasions, but mostly it was just studying the latest Chess Informant 156, because they had an excellent article on the World Championship that I finally worked up the motivation for. Because after all, we've seen all the games from the World Chess Championship. We saw most of them somewhat live, if not somewhat live via the highlights on a day-to-day basis. And I actually got a chance to dig in deep to, games 2 and games 4 and games 5, 6, 7, because those games were just such brutality as far as the excitement that we were missing in the Magnus Carlsen World Championship match.
You can get from,
and not that Magnus's game wasn't exciting. It's just that all the games
there was just domination from the only point you could dominate.
Just collapsed. And, once he buckled, it was like an arm wrestling match. Once Magnus had gotten Nepo's wrist to slip, Nepo could not get his arm back up off the near touching of the table.
It happens, unfortunately. It is what it is. John, you might have to get yourself a grandmaster coach and get him, give him a bullwhip, But amen.
Yeah, once the finances
recovering
are in
post
order,
I'm still
somewhat recovering post COVID with the purchase of the house, and no, it's incredibly expensive to survive COVID in New York City, that's for sure. But on average, I guess in the past month, speaking of COVID and those sad things, in the past couple of months, we've had a couple of losses. Most notably recently, the passing of Jeremy Silman, who was a remarkable author, and he touched the hearts and souls of many of the world's amateurs with his How to Reassess Your Chess, the Amateur's Mind. I'm happy to say that I did know him, and I met him and talked to him on a couple of occasions, and I even got the chance to feel his wrath when I had accidentally edited, or I don't believe I reworded it. I think I shortened his sentence in some article to not have some widows in a Chess Life magazine article, and I didn't realize that I wasn't allowed to do that without consulting him, as he literally called me up and let me have it for editing his Chess Life magazine article. I didn't edit that much of it either. It was just like the one last paragraph that I needed it to fit on the page, right?
Yeah.
because you have to place ads, and you only have so much copy space, and I had to put it in there. I didn't necessarily want to take out a diagram, which is probably the easiest thing to do, and then throw a cartoon in, which if you see cartoons in chess magazines or magazines of any sort, that means
Yeah,
that
and
they're
I
filling that
understand. I
space because
used to
the
do
author
editing
didn't
for a
do
school
it.
newspaper. No, my humble brag right there. That's me, big time editor there. But yeah, so I'm sorry, I had to step away for a second. A
Yeah.
big, yeah.
No, your editing. No, but your editing prowess speaks for itself. Working for Chess Dojo Live and others,
Oh,
including
you
myself, on various
give me too much
occasions,
credit. I mean, I'm
making us look
literally too
good
much credit. Um,
when needed.
yeah. Sorry, I had to step away for a second. I've got a big old blackbird on my I've got the stairs
I don't.
coming down from the second floor,
That's
which
all
I'm
right. I
on,
don't.
and there's a big bird just sitting on the stairs on the way down. He's found his way in. He's just sitting there stunned. He's like, what have I, where am I? So I was not, it happens all the time. Someone opens the door. That's not a raven. I mean, if it was a raven, I would be a lot
It's
happier
not a
because I've
raven,
always
is it?
had this small
It's not a
want to
raven.
like befriend a raven or something, and then teach it about the concept of money, and then basically have a flock of ravens giving me small amounts of money. But that's a different story for another day. Yeah. So basically, what you want to do is you want to reward
As
them
I've heard, those are the
with better and
smartest of
better
birds.
food every
So
time they bring you something of higher monetary value, and then hopefully you get a little bartering system going. And I mean, you got to think outside the box here,
I like it. I was already hit the month before Jeremy Silverman passed because the author, or the founder, I should say, the founder of Chess Informant, which really educated decades upon decades of the world's best grandmasters. Alexander Matanovich died, I think, in late August. And he was the founder of Chess Informant. And Chess Informant, prior to the ChessBase era, was the main source of information a couple of times a year at first. It came out every 6 months from 1966 through around 1989 or 80, in the late 80s. And then somewhere around then, they started coming out every 3 times a year with the best games of the best players analyzed by the best players. So if you can imagine, if you're a doctor, you subscribe to the American Journal of Medicine, and you get all the latest developments in medicine and medical treatments as a doctor on a subscription basis. And Bobby Fischer and Magnus Carlsen and almost everyone would pour through Chess Informant whenever it arrived, just to make sure that you hadn't missed anything.
So ChessBase is great for that. Turn on ChessBase once and it'll give you every opening novelty of the last 24 hours.
Yeah.
It's quite a thing to experience. But yeah, so yeah, it's much like the...
Exactly. It's quite incredible. Yeah.
So basically, Chess Informant is the Bible,
right?
the gospel of the oldest statesman of the sport.
New move played. Yeah, Tigran Petrosian used to mock it a little bit by claiming that all of his opponents that he was losing to in his later years were all informant babies to a certain extent. Like, they all have all the information, and he couldn't pull anything over on them because they all had all of the latest information. I remember once there was a game by Dmitry Gurevich in a Najdorf with queen, because he liked to play the bishop c4, Bobby Fischer Sojin type variation against the Najdorf, and it had Queen F3 on the 9th move. And I saw several games of his. I think at least one of them was played in the U.S. Championship at the time in the late 80s or the mid to late 80s. And I literally used that to win maybe a dozen or more chess games. I literally used Dmitry Gurevich's annotations to win several weeks of tournament games at various moments, and it was just such a lovely thing. And now I don't feel that same thing from the internet. It's like, if I get a novelty, it's just another chess move. It feels like, in the scope of things, like I don't noticeably, I just don't really noticeably know that I'm using that particular
too much
bit of information to win my chess game.
Emotional
yes,
connection
it's in the background, but it's not that move.
I mean,
How
it is said. It is said in
Yeah,
order
it's
to
way too
remember
much
something, there must be an
information that's
emotional
going on.
connection to it, and
After all,
that's how many Scrabble players remember large varieties of letters.
yeah,
They can make, the commonly drawn letters. They have to have an emotional attachment to it. I mean, for instance, you'll probably remember the word you lost to and the
right?
set of letters that you lost to.
Even
And yeah,
Oh yeah, exactly. You have to have that emotional attachment for the memory to take hold. For example, I remember when Alexander Wojtkiewicz would log on to the Internet Chess Club, and I could literally see him playing through. Like you could follow a player or observe a player. So every time that player brought up a game or played a game, it would automatically pop up. Not unlike Lee Chess TV, right? Or chess.com has the ability to follow a streamer's games. If Jesse February or Danya are playing on chess.com,
right.
you literally follow them and the games just keep popping up so you don't miss a game of theirs. And I remember Alexander Wojtkiewicz literally just going through game after game of the recent tournaments from the broadcast list and watching him study, and he would stop and I'd be studying the position with him as he kept on going. He's no longer with us. He passed many years ago, and Jonathan Hilton wrote a three-volume tribute to his openings, Wojo's Weapons, and it basically used the Catalan and many other openings as white. It was Wojo's Weapons is white primarily, from what I remember. I have the books behind me somewhere. I'm not going to dig them out, but Jonathan Hilton was an aspiring young man in the chess world, and he studied under Alexander Wojtkiewicz, grandmaster from Poland, who traveled the world. He was a little bit of an entrepreneur. Like he would come back from the Olympiad, and he would sell me actual chessboards. Like he brings back, several dozen or chessboards that were actually used in the Olympiad that year. And he'd bring them to the Marshall Chess Club, and he would literally sell all the chessboards and chess sets that were used in the Olympiad that had fallen off the truck. I can't even imagine how he got them to New York. But basically, yes, this is the actual board that was used, and
wouldn't be a terrible business
had,
idea.
Maybe a dozen
You
and a
just
half.
you pay off all the top
dozen.
players for an hour and just get them in a big line. Conveyor belt signing all the chessboards. Just.
It was very cool, and I like, okay, of course I want one of these wooden chessboards that was used in the Olympiad. Now I have too many wooden chessboards.
And what a horrible thing to have too many wooden chessboards. This man here is suffering, truly.
You can only use one.
It's all right. Unless you've got an impromptu simul or something.
You can only really use one at a time, unless you have a tournament, but for the most part. So it is incredibly sad that we lost Jeremy Silman to a prolonged, long illness. I think he was living in Asia for the latter part of his life. And Alexander Matanovich was very close to 100. At least he lived a much longer life. He got to see Magnus Carlsen retire from the World Championship and choose not to play classical chess, which is probably what did him in, the game going downhill the way it is as far as the classical approach. Although, as you and I discussed, the classical games do have their importance for the championships. I don't think they should be overlooked in their relevance, as far as it does take a lot of stamina and a lot of preparation and a lot of resilience and focusing over a long period of time. It's one of the reasons why we're not Magnus Carlsen. It's really sad, but if it could be done by everyone, which is what Blitz, Rapid,
I probably dislike it because I'm not as good at it as other people tend to. And the only reason I dislike classical is because I feel people have an unfair advantage by simply being, simply being not as good. They sorry, okay. So I'm, it sounds a bit it sounds like I'm bragging a bit, but I do find myself being a slightly better chess player than most people at my chess club. However, they tend to have an advantage by manually taking up 3 hours and thinking up every variation, and it wears on you. Where you start making dumb mistakes, once you get tired, and then it's like, yeah.
Yep.
But
A lot
yes,
of
I mean,
won
but I
games are
do.
thrown
I
away
think there is a little
just
bit.
like
I
that.
hate it because I ain't it. I'm not amazingly good at that time control, so I dislike it more. And obviously, there's a very, very big reason why classical is the
Yeah.
time control for world championships. It's the time control for world champ because it's the purest form of chess. Nobody can say, "Well, I was running out of time." I mean, it's brute force calculation over multiple hours. It shows everything that you need to be need to have to be a champion if you win in that time control. And I do understand when people say it is a bit boring. Chess is not a spectator
Yeah.
sport as much as it could be, but it's more of a spectator sport than it should be sometimes. But that's it's not meant for me to be like it.
Right.
It's the world champion. We're trying to
Yeah,
figure out who the
especially
best chess
the
player on
longer
the
time
planet is. We're
goes.
not trying to figure out whether my brain does a happy. I mean, yeah, I mean, if you're asking people like me opinion on stuff
Right.
like this, you're like going to the wrong
Speaking
people.
of speaking of championships and that, we also have I guess clear winners. Let me just rephrase that. We don't have clear winners in the World Junior Championship that ended shortly before the U.S. Championship, which is now going on, featuring Carissa Yip and everyone's favorite knockabout pinata, Hans Niemann. It's really sad because I guess
yes.
we should also
Okay,
mention the
let's
interview
start off
with
by the fact
Piers
is
Morgan.
that I haven't fully watched the interview. I watched the
Ugh.
first bit of the interview, and then I looked at Piers Morgan and I was like, "Do I really like looking at this guy's face?" And then I went, then there's, of course I said, "No, I don't." And here's the thing about Piers Morgan.
Yeah.
Piers Morgan is not amazing at interviewing. He's reasonably unbiased, which is the only reason I give him any credit. He will be the same cantankerous, abrasive, and combative person to absolutely anyone, and that's his charm. His charm is not asking good questions.
Right.
Oh, I know. Yeah, I guess. I mean,
And
he
his
used to be
viewers
an
like to see
American
people
TV
being
host,
put on the spot, I guess.
which was fun to watch.
That must be it. Because I did watch the whole interview, and he seemed to, after his initial foray into
He was out of ammo.
whether or not beads were used, then and of course Hans Niemann, yeah, it didn't work, and then
It did, yes.
I think Hans Niemann's lawyer also appeared in the interview with him just to make sure that things were clarified properly.
I mean, I would.
And Piers Morgan was a little shocked by that the lawyer was sitting next to him. And the lawyer did actually answer some questions where Hans Niemann said something, and tried to not say anything at the same time, because he doesn't want to perpetuate this unfortunate circumstance of his having cheated in online games, right?
Yeah, I mean,
as having parlayed themselves over the board games. And I don't
there's no
believe that
evidence
he's
from the
cheated in over the
start.
board
It was,
games. It's very, very difficult.
when
It's
there's
very
countermeasures,
difficult to cheat
especially
in
for
over
the
the
sort
board
of stuff.
games
Yeah.
without getting caught.
Like, I mean,
Especially
casinos have
if people
casinos
are
have
aware of
signal
you
jamming. They have
possibly cheating.
absolutely everything. Like,
Yeah,
the
because
security in those sort of things by the organizers of that tournament that he was supposedly cheating in were very confident in their anti-cheating ability. And if I was in such a situation as an organizer, I would not be saying I'm confident in my anti-cheating abilities. In fact it was, if in fact I was unconfident about it, I would steer myself away from that. But yes, I did think it was a good move by Hans to bring his lawyer on. Obviously, Piers Morgan, while not the absolute best interviewer or journalist on the planet, can ask some hard questions at times, and having a trained law professional to answer those legal questions like there was probably the best thing. I mean, as Hans Niemann, he already has trouble explaining some stuff. So, I mean, I wouldn't, if I was him, I'd fucking have a whole team of lawyers. I'd be like, there's Bob, there's Jim.
yeah, being under the gun.
Ask away, man. Yeah, so but the thing I take away from the Piers Morgan interview is probably a very non-relevant point, but I really dislike how the media Like the moment there's even the slightest hint of something sensationalist, like anal beads, for instance, right? They will all reference each other. The moment the anal beads is mentioned, they will all reference each other in each other's
Right.
articles, and it'll suddenly it'll be from for 24 hours onward. It'll be start as a joke to like legitimate questions. I don't see where anyone has decided, oh, well, that's actually a legitimate question. No, it isn't.
Right.
It isn't. It never was. It's the dumbest shit I've heard in my life. I mean,
It's not and he came back
it's
to
like,
it
dude,
several times, desperately trying to make it relevant. Like I think Hans Niemann actually threw it back at him very nicely at some point by saying, "Well, I think if you're really interested in these beads so much that you
yeah,
should probably have somebody on who can help you
yeah, I
with
know.
these
It's like,
beads, who
I mean,
actually
Piers
knows
should have
about
the
them."
intellectual integrity to do the tiniest bit
And
of research and realize that was a joke.
oh, it's so
And when it
sad.
gets put on you, back on you like three times, like, no, dude, there's no evidence. Oh, and also there's no
Right.
evidence. Oh, and did I mention it was a joke? Yeah, that you should like take the hint
That
that he's
these things
probably
exist.
barking up the wrong tree.
Yeah,
Maybe you should go into the other stuff. I mean, any of the other stuff.
it's quite
It's like,
incredible. Right.
yeah.
And speaking of the organizers, right? The St. Louis Chess Club, which ultimately was the first organizational victim of this thing, because Magnus basically accused them as an innocent, as a bystander,
Mm.
in a drive-by, accusation that they were not doing their job, and they did, make sure that nothing was happening, and he was still doing fine at that stage. Obviously, I would be shaken, I
Yeah.
think, if the world champion walked out on me and nullified my win, and threw me under the bus for what I'd done as a child, whether I was 12 years old or 16 years old, because here in the United States there are laws that
Mm.
you cannot necessarily bring about stuff that someone has done as a child
I mean,
out
even for
into the
crime,
public
there's
eye.
statutes of limitation.
It's like these things are supposed to be
I mean, even for crimes,
treated
it
as a
probably
juvenile
isn't.
record and not an adult
It's
record.
probably not a crime to
So,
cheat in an online thing. Well, maybe it is. I don't know. Maybe it counts as fraud. But there is statute of limitations for even serious stuff. So I mean, it is slightly improper of chess.com to get involved the way they did. I mean,
yeah.
chess that was
Oh yeah, that was part of it. Hikaru making money off of it was the thing that
I
piqued
mean,
Hans
com didn't really
Niemann's
have a dog in the fight.
ire
They were
against
merely
him
a side
to a
reference to
certain extent.
people's
But
anecdotal
St.
evidence
Louis
to
actually
why
released.
Hans Niemann might have tried to do something until they decided to bring up a report, and then the report that I don't know, I don't
Yeah,
know if I can trust the report. I do know there was statistical evaluation, but of course, anything can be put into any light depending on what's going on. And I do
right.
think Hikaru had some very, very, has some kind of
Yeah,
things to answer for, because it's a little, in my eyes, it's a little bit flip flopping. He goes in real hard and he goes, with a facial expression. I don't think he did anything, guys. Then he puts it. And then when
right.
he's
And
like,
then
"Oh,
says he
maybe
didn't
this
do
could
anything.
turn into a legal thing," it's clown nose back on. Oh, I'm just kidding, guys. I don't know what I'm talking about. Like I've got no reputation to. I would never. I would never. Look at me. I'm innocent.
Yeah, yeah.
Everyone knows I'm innocent.
But I'll give St. Louis credit, though. I'll give St. Louis credit because in wrapping up the most recent harassment charges as well on the Alejandro Ramirez thing, they did issue a statement saying and itemizing all of the things that they have done to try to make sure that stuff like this doesn't happen again. Not just the cheating incident, not just the organizational issues, but also the harassment training. In fact, I think it was a statement that was released roughly in the past week and a half to two. They stated that we were silent on this very real and important issue for too long, and in doing so, we let down those whom we champion: the students, the players, the donor, the friends, the women who might have been obviously the
Mm.
women who might have been harassed by Alejandro during that, and they let him go. And they actually list in a bullet points that they have active bystander intervention and anti-discrimination training for all staff members and directors and organizers of their events and so forth, and the updated employee handbook and enhanced background checks for coaches and any staff having contact with minors, and enhanced adoption of the USCF's the U.S. Chess Federation. Let me just make sure that that's understood. The U.S. Chess Federation's guidelines on safe play and conduct, and they've got a revised code of conduct, and they're basically an implementation of almost any type of reporting tool in case anybody sees anything at all untoward toward other players, and not just
also,
not
it
just
must be understood
behavior that's not becoming.
We are referencing an earlier.
So I'm going to commend them for trying.
An earlier news story from that was covered on the podcast. So so we are referencing allegations against U.S. chess by women who claim to have been. I don't know how to put that delicately. My brain is just not working. Alejandro Ramirez
reported to have
and another
by one or more
and another person whose name escapes me, but it's in the report too. You can find such articles on Lead Chess and in the show notes from past podcasts. Just so you know, we're not just referencing something and then only like three out of 5 people will get. So yeah.
But and this was brought to a head in advance of the U.S. Chess Championship, which began 3 or 4 days ago. I think we're at the end of round 3 right now. But they really did want to make amends with, I think, Lead Chess and Chess.com, who are not covering U.S. chess events or St. Louis events because of the allegations of misconduct and their failure to address it. And so, therefore, they released this nice statement saying that, you know, we're I guess it's sort of an apology for staying silent too long on what was possibly happening, and that they did not make transparent their investigations or, their discrimination examination or investigation, basically. And now they're going to make every effort to provide a safe environment free from harassment and sexual misconduct, hazing, bullying. I'm reading here from their thing: hazing, bullying, or mental or physical abuse by any person within the context of a chess event or a chess happening. Let's just put it that way, whether or not it's an actual event, because certainly after the tournament is over, people might retire to more casual circumstances where, stuff happens. You've had a drink or two and you don't behave the way you're supposed to.
Yeah.
But if someone gets hurt by this, that's not cool. So I'm hoping that Lead Chess and Chess.com start covering the U.S. Championship. I know that most of the news that I've found has been through the website or through chessbase.com. Chessbase.com has news reports on Carissa Yip leading the women's event. She drew with Irina Krush in the first round, and I think she has 2.5 out of 3. She's a half point ahead of the leaders, and I believe that she beat Alice Lee today, possibly in round 4, or I might be missing up my rounds. I apologize if that's the case. And Hans Niemann was briefly leading the tournament with 1.5 out of 2, but I believe he lost to Darius Schweers. I'm going to mispronounce his name. I can only apologize. Oh, no, he lost to, I apologize. He drew with Darius Schweers, or he beat. Anyway, he lost to Sam Shankland in round 3, and now he is in a relative massive tie for third or so, with 1.5 out of 3. But another really awesome streamer result that we should report is Jesse February's triumphs in the the Moja Chess Festival, one of the largest tournaments held in South Africa.
I mean, very cool event. A lot of people that I know in the chess community went there. Plenty of South African people in the Twitch community and stuff like that.
Yeah, no words came in to
what a way of avoiding the topic. I don't want to talk about it, guys. I went to this beautiful event with all these people. Don't
And I
really
wasn't
want to
going to
talk
press him
about it.
on
You
it.
know, it's just awful. You know.
I do want to fly in myself and participate. I think Mark Arnold actually must have played 1 year.
Like, would I have
I
been a
know he played in
millionaire? I
South
would. I
Africa,
would
and I
probably
don't
fly
necessarily
around the
know that
world
it
playing
wasn't
chess
this
tournaments.
event,
But it's
but
one of those beautiful things.
especially lovely ones like this. So
Oh,
an Egyptian
damn.
grandmaster won the premier or the prestige section, I guess as they call it. The
Oh, damn! I was
prestige
about to guess
section was
Aaron
won by
Tari.
an Egyptian grandmaster, Adam Fawzi,
No.
and there's a Aryan Tari did beat Jules Moussard, who was the regular at the Blitz Society bar in Paris when I was there. He was there frequently, at least on more than
Yeah.
a couple of occasions when I was hanging out in Paris over the summer at the Blitz Society where you could play chess. So Jules Moussard is a top grandmaster. He was playing for just drawing a blank on what club sponsored him. Now we're talking about the European Chess Club
Yeah.
Championship, I guess. Aryan Tari did perform well. He did perform well, and he performed well for Offerspiel, who won the European Chess Club tournament. I'm very proud of them, especially since I'm a member. I'm a proud card-carrying, paying member of the Offerspiel Chess Club, founded by Magnus Carlsen when he had a tiff with the Norwegian Chess Federation. Actually, he was threatening to start his own chess federation in Norway. If people did not know about this, there was a sponsorship issue involving companies that may or may not involve gambling. I think it was USA Bet.com.
I'm sure you'll be fine.
I apologize for butchering their company name, but basically it was a gambling. It's one of Magnus Carlsen's sponsors, and the Norwegian Chess Federation sort of refused them recognition.
That's why they're paying
because
me.
they had a relationship to gambling.
That's why they got money, bro.
And Magnus Carlsen says, yeah, no way are you going to keep these guys. They've got money. They want to bring it into chess, and we're not going to stop them. So Magnus Carlsen says, I'm going to start my own chess entity, which ended up being the Offerspiel Chess Club.
How much do you have to pay Magnus to do his chess club thing?
Replacing the Norwegian Chess Federation.
Yeah.
My membership?
Excessively
it's actually very
cheap.
nominal. It's less than $100 a year. It's like $70 a year.
Kidding.
$70. But it is excessively cheap considering that I play frequently in events for them online as a member several days a week throughout the month. They have a league each month, and I've got much Offerspiel merch in my office here. A couple of hoodies and a couple of T-shirts that I'm using on the back of my chair to advertise them. So it's not
if you get the wrong
really
size,
a paid advertisement. I actually had to work my butt off to earn this merch.
If you get the wrong size, I'll send you my shipping address
as a league prize. A league prize. They didn't give this. Yeah, I actually thought I got the size wrong at first, but once I wore it a couple of times, it was the perfect size. So I was lucky. I've
always said that free stuff is always the right size.
Large, and I was really worried, especially when you're trying to. That's right. Especially when you're doing what's the right word? When you're ordering European sizes versus American sizes. Small, medium, large, and extra large, and then the Europeans are always thinner. They are thinner and healthier, so they're large, maybe much smaller than an American large. An American large is
like a camping tent, just without the poles.
All the time, you know.
Yeah.
Exactly, steak and potatoes. But yeah, I'm proud of Jessie February for representing herself, and it was cool to check out all the other players and this
all these strong South African women
festival.
International Masters.
Pretty good. Chess Extravaganza.
Yep. Sorry, I'm being me again.
So yeah, that's all right. You're being a little facetious because the ratings of the women's international masters and there's even a WGM who's around 16 or 1700 FIDE, and it seems rather incredible that WGM's. But I believe that they've qualified for the World Championship cycle at one point or another in their career, and that's how they got their
grizzle.
titles. almost
slight murmurings
honorarily.
in Vietnam, but I'm kidding. But like, yeah, I do think there needs to be a tightening up of these titles. They seem to, you know, I mean, like this, these national masters running around with. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding, John.
Yeah. But I'm proud of my club, Offerspiel. They weathered through it because they have participated in this before. And of course, when you have Magnus Carlsen playing and you don't finish in first place,
Reincarnated
it's
Babe
like
Ruth.
being a Yankees fan in New York City and George Steinbrenner, the old, or having Babe Ruth on your team and not winning the not even qualifying or winning the World Series, right?
It's like Michael Jordan.
Which at that one moment in time, it was almost unheard of. I think the Red Sox broke them, though. I think the Red Sox actually broke them when they won the World Series because nobody ever thought.
I don't know much about baseball.
Again, since like the early days, but that's all right. Neither do I. All I know is the biggies. So we know Magnus Carlsen, and I think every person that I meet, whether I'm playing billiards at Society Billiards and Bar,
the bar better. That's the most important.
In Manhattan, in the Flatiron District of Manhattan, people
don't know
and ask me what Magnus Carlsen is doing lately, and I'm like, these are people that don't know all about chess, right? And they're asking about Magnus Carlsen. What's Magnus Carlsen doing? You know. And he went through his poker phase, and he's now not.
I think he's pretty ADHD. If I'm gonna be guessing, he's got a bit of an obsessive compulsive streak that lasts several months for a topic.
You want to be good at something. We did get a lot of good chess, though, I have to admit, in the European Club Cup, because you had Maxime Vachier-Lagrave and Richard Rapport, who was on the other team. Basically, Richard Rapport was on the other team, Super Chess from Romania, that was tied with Offerspiel going into the last round. And because Offerspiel beat them, Magnus Carlsen won 4 games in a row against fairly strong grandmasters, including Vincent Kamer, who I think he beat in 20-something moves, which was pretty unheard of. He's just like obliterating these guys. And then he coasted to a finish while the rest of the team did all the heavy lifting. He drew Richard Rapport in the battle with their second place rivals, Super Chess. I guess it was called the Super Chess Club out of Romania. Super Bet was the other. Yes, it was Super Bet that sponsored the Magnus Carlsen online series there.
But to all the gambling companies out there, we will accept gambling money. We're quite happy. We'll take a cigarette sponsorship.
Well, we will Marlboro. I don't know if we have to take up smoking to get it, but no, I hear you. And the bright side, the Richard Rapport's team's women's division, Super Chess did win the women's section of the European Club Cup Championship. And there were roughly there are at least 85 or 84 teams from various clubs across Europe playing in the men's section. I don't recall the number of clubs that were participating in the women's section, but it's quite something for those players to represent their local establishment. And for Vachier-Lagrave to play and Richard Rapport, those are the 2 players that Magnus Carlsen drew with to close out his tournament and the club championship title for Offerspiel. It's quite impressive. Rogan and I were noting earlier that what team was it? Galway. Galway went with their best intentions, and they lost 7 rounds with no draws and no losses.
I mean, it's the Irish,
and I hope they had a really good time.
No, I'm kidding, but
no,
but I mean, they probably had a good time. I mean, I don't see why they wouldn't. I mean, unless they went in there with we're gonna win this, guys. I mean, the Irish are looking strong. They got
we got to win one for the Gipper
for the quarterfinals of the Rugby World Cup. And I'm sweating nervously despite my quiet confidence.
Now there's some.
No, that doesn't make any sense. Oh, I'm glad to hear it.
Quite the All Blacks fan, by the way. I am a relative All Blacks fan from the World Cup from maybe a half a dozen years ago. I would get up with a friend at 4:00 in the morning, and we'd go to the local pub, and they would show the games until the wee early hours of the morning, and then I'd come home and have breakfast.
Those were the days.
Those are the days.
Well, I mean,
I mean,
when
it
you're
wasn't
young
during
enough,
the
you can do
school
a
year
lot
at
of
that
things with
point,
sleep
so I
that
was
you
very
can't
lucky.
do, which I apparently can't do at 21 anymore. But,
Right.
yeah, tis a pain, but I'm quietly confident that the
Indeed.
Irish hadn't faced a good team yet. I mean, even though I'm wrong on that, but that's that's what All Blacks arrogance is all about. All the arrogance of the New Zealanders goes into their All Blacks team. That's it's like a sacrificial goat. We put all the hopes of our country onto that one team, and if they fail, we lynch the coach.
And then we got to perform. And there's another one too. I think that there were 7 rounds, and I think Magnus Carlsen only played 6 of the games, but he actually had to work his tuchus off in those classical games to gain 6 rating points. He had a good performance rating, obviously, by plowing through and going 4-0 in the first 4 rounds, or first 4 of 5 rounds. I don't know that he didn't take a round off because there were 7 rounds altogether. He only played 6 opponents. He beat 4 relatively decent and strong grandmasters, including Vincent Kamer, drew with Vachier Lagrave and Richard Rapport, and gained 6 rating points to go up to 28.45, which is remarkably 60 rating points ahead of second.
The guy probably
Fabiano
loses rating, or
Caruana
definitely
at
loses rating
27.84.
points if he draws. Like if he draws the wrong guy, he's losing like 2 rating points, 3 rating points.
Yeah, but the K factor is very small, so the volatility factor is not that great. I think if he draws with someone, he doesn't get penalized so poorly. But even if you lose, so I know that for those of you that don't understand how the calculation of ratings are done by events, one common way of looking at it, which is the most frequently understood way, is that once you've played, let's just say, 6 opponents, they will average those opponents' ratings across the board, and you will have an expected score. So if you're playing someone, if the average of your opponents was 100 rating points below you or more, as in Magnus' case, then he's expected to score, let's just say, 4.5 out of 6. Let's just say he's supposed to get 4.5 out of 6. And he actually scored 5 out of 6 with 2 draws at the end. So therefore, because he finished with 5 out of 6 instead of 4.5 out of 6, he performed better than the average rating. And then the calculation is based on what the expected score was against an average opponent. And he gained 6 rating points because he performed at a level for the 5 and 1 rather than the 4.5 out of 6, 4.5, 1.5 score. And they don't necessarily do it on a game-by-game basis. I know they have some rating calculators on various websites where if you play someone 400 rating points below you and you win, you gain 1 rating point. And it's not necessarily done so much on a game-by-game basis, especially since your opponents could be scoring much higher. So I believe that FIDE and US Chess actually do it based a little bit on the performance ratings of the opponents. So if you play somebody who's really playing hot, you may or may not lose as many rating points as you think you're going to lose.
Well, I know, so, my eyes were glazing over us.
Yeah, it's all boring math stuff, but on average.
Yeah.
I almost heard snoring in the background.
Yeah.
And birds
looking towards the door. I was like, can I make a break for it and get back here? And
we did it, right? We did overlook one other notable loss in the chess world, Gert Giesen, who was perhaps the most famous chess arbiter in the world. He was the arbiter for the World Chess Championship between Garry Kasparov and Karpov in their 1984 match, I believe. And among others, well, if he wasn't in the 1984 match, he was certainly the arbiter for the international arbiter who took care of Kasparov and Karpov in 1987 and 1990. And he also took care of Karpov versus Kamsky etc., and
Ah,
so
right, the
on.
Kramnik.
And he was the arbiter for the
Yes.
famous toilet gate. This is where Vladimir Kramnik was accused of cheating
And there was
because he
suspicious
spent
amounts of
all of his
wires
time
lying
in the
around that
bathroom during
people
the matches.
theorized could have.
No, someone did a picture of a bathroom with
Look, I mean,
wires and
Kramnik is a man
network
of taste. He
cables
just
and
likes a
things like
very
that that
high-tech
were
toilet.
stripped.
What can we say? I mean,
And
yeah, that's the way out of it.
there you go. I mean, allegedly, Vesel and Topalov, who actually won the Sofia Bulgaria unification tournament for the FIDE World Championship crown to decide who was going to play Kramnik. Topalov cruised through the field of players, just winning game after game against the best players. He was always on the same table in 2005, and he was near the front, of course, so the spectators could watch him, which, of course, led to people accusing him of receiving help from spectators. And he did not seem bothered. Like, he didn't seem to spend any time prepping. He was just so casual throughout the tournament, hanging out in the bar area, socializing. And it was just a very suspicious thing. And now
It's
you
like,
got
I know one when I
Topalov
see one.
accusing
No,
Kramnik of cheating, right? And right, when I have this incident in school, when somebody accuses somebody of something, it's usually
a
because they've
guilty
had that
nature.
in mind
Yeah.
themselves, which seems even more profound to me. Right? It's a guilty nature. Yeah, it's like, it never occurred to me that my opponents were cheating because I don't live that lifestyle myself.
Yeah.
I have no clue as
Nowadays,
to how easy it is to do.
John's
All I
gone there
know is
for a
that I'm always
second, but
equally surprised when
yeah,
people are caught doing
I know
it.
you're back. Well, I mean,
Yeah.
or it just, it said that you left, but you hadn't.
Am I
Now,
gone?
I mean, that used to be the same with me. I just never, like, people would have to pick up that for me that someone's cheating against me. I wouldn't actually know. But nowadays, it's when I tend to accuse more often because it just gets blatant. You got a 300 playing some serious combination. I'm like, 300s, their brains can't comprehend this. Like, I tend to get more suspicious lately just because of the amount of cheaters
Right.
that I see. I think the amount of online cheating is increasing ever so slightly. I don't know. I have zero evidence to back this up except for anecdotal evidence, but I
I don't know.
get ideas.
I think the more we talk about it, the more people are becoming aware of it, and it comes to the fore of your mind. Like, I think I played one guy today who played really brilliantly for a stretch, and for just one moment, I said, you know
Yeah.
what? And then I went back and I looked at the game and I went, nah, he probably just found those.
Look.
I'm positive that I just played so badly to let that happen to me, unfortunately, that I wanted to believe in some other possibility. But in reality, honestly, we learn chunking of information in certain ways in chess. They're tactical patterns and sequences of moves.
Yeah.
And when I see them done against me by someone who's not supposed to be highly rated, I might think that they got help, but at the same time, I know that they could have seen those chunks of information
But I see,
actually
I
had
see
that
the
in their
worst
catalog.
players and the
Because they
best
essayed
players,
it.
and I sometimes I'm like, yeah, 300, you just you're bullshitting, man. But I mean, yeah, the one thing I do want to hear from chess.com though is how good they are at catching intermittent engine users, because that's that's something I hear, that's something I see a lot, right? If they play so goddamn well, then you say in chat, well, I'm
Right.
not
That's what I thought
accusing this guy
in
of
this
anything,
game.
but my goodness gracious, is he playing perfect? And then suddenly, all of a sudden, without the slightest hint of, without the slightest, change in the wind, they just start playing really terribly after I
Out of
start
nowhere, he
calling them
starts
out
playing
for it.
really well.
And then it's like, well, and then you report them because obviously they were playing like 100% accuracy before that, and then suddenly it's just all downhill. It's from it's like 25 moves in.
Yes,
Yeah,
but how does
because
that
like I get
reflect
the
on
feeling
how does
that
that
if I
reflect
just
on the
used
being
intermittent
caught
engine,
problem?
I probably could get
That's a
away
good
with it. I
question.
mean, I don't see any evidence that Chess.com has a robust system to catch people who do that. I think they only catch the dumb people. They only catch the dumb people.
Yeah, there was an article on that.
Oh, it's all good. No, it's
Yeah,
all
there've been
good.
a
No,
few
I'm just like
articles on
pondering the
that. Yeah.
fact that there's probably answers already out
Sorry.
there, but yeah. So I mean,
Well, I know that they can probably do it across certain periods of time by going across several games. I do honestly believe that anyone at any given time can play a logical thought upon a logical thought
okay.
when they've gotten enough sleep and whatnot at any rating level. Basically, they can see something and they can pursue it almost at any rating level as long as it's a logical sequence of moves. The thing I have, and I think I got one guy on this, I actually reported him to Lichess and he was banned instantly within the scope of the tournament. Like he didn't have a chance to even finish one of my daily dojo Swisses. He was like 6-0. He'd just beaten me, and someone goes, "Wow, what was that?" Right? Like he had these unusual pauses before every move, and then he would uncork some move that I never saw coming. And I'm like, "Whoa, that's clever." And then another one a little while later, "Whoa, that's clever." Like, what's up with that? And then I was like shocked, right? Because he wasn't playing that well at the beginning, and I think I let my guard down. And then he came up with these hammer blows. And I did report it. He was banned. And then he tries to come on. He actually came on in my stream and told me that he was a good player and he told me who he was and everything. But at the same time, I felt guilty, but Lee Chess put the kibosh on him, not just for that particular game, but for his play in others' games as well.
Sorry, I drink a lot of water, and I was just
based on his rating differential, probably.
yeah. I do believe we skipped a little
That's
bit
all right.
over
I
Jeremy
understand
Silman a
completely.
little bit. I mean,
But
we didn't. I don't believe we went into a lot of detail into like the massive amounts of achievements that
I apologize.
that he managed.
You're absolutely right. I went into Alexander Matanovich in
That's all right. I
in the
mean,
chess informant revolution shortly after that, a little too quickly. Gert Geeson. Gert Geeson, I apologize for those who knew him as an arbiter. I also met the arbiter of the World Championship tournament in Dubai, and I thanked him for his work because I know how much hard work goes on behind the scenes. Not just behind the scenes as an organizer, as an arbiter, but behind the scenes as a coach and an author, such as Jeremy Silman.
Yeah,
Should
without a
receive
doubt. I
adequate
mean, truly, almost. I mean,
recognition.
there's a saying that graveyards are filled
Yeah,
with indispensable people. I mean, but Jeremy Silman is truly one of the greats when it comes to chess in general. He was a best-selling author when chess authors weren't best-selling. I mean, it's nobody. It's very very hard to
that's
get.
right.
It's very very hard to get best-selling on a chess book, but he managed to do it many many times with the sheer quality. All of his books, I think pretty universally granted the status of instant classic. Like the moment he prints a book, it's an instant classic. It's completely referenced by absolutely anyone
Yeah.
who's slightly studied chess. He's the one person that he can be relied upon to be able to
Mm-hmm.
reference, and people will know who he is.
For those, yeah, for those who are not necessarily familiar with the titles of his works, I mentioned a couple of a couple of them earlier: The Amateur's Mind and How to Reassess Your Chess. But the further bestsellers were his complete endgame course, which was quite incredible because it also addressed rating levels of endgame information knowledge. Like you have to know this to be able to be here, and you have to know this to be able to be 1800, and you have to know this to be able to proceed in a rating category. And he had the complete book of chess strategy, I believe. I think that was the name of the book, which which were translated into many languages as well, and they were bestsellers for a publishing company that his wife had initiated, Silman James Press, based on his ability to just churn it out and make sure that the
Well,
works
I
were
am.
published the way he intended them to be. I think his original publisher was that of a film book who did film books. Or maybe that's the person they merged with. Yes, there it is. I found it. James Fox, who published mainly film books on films like Godfather and whatnot, I'm certain. And now, once he added chess, these bestsellers were just hits, and they reached all sorts of audiences
Oh, of course.
and improved. He basically taught the world in the in the late 1990s and 2000. He was a product of the Fisher boom, right? He moved to California from Texas at whatever moment in the 70s. Met John Donaldson, I think, around 1981, and basically
Yes. So 500,000
revolutionized the chess
copies in the United
coaching
States,
publishing
which
industry.
500,000 just in the United States is quite an accomplishment. That is not counting international sales. And yes, so they've been translated into French and German now that the New York Times has let me pass their ad
Right.
blocker, surprisingly. No, no, right? It's like, thank you, dude. Like, I want to read about this guy, and they're giving me ad blockers. But at least I can read it now. Mr. Silman's book has been sought out for both his writing style, which is conversational and colloquial, and his practical advice on how to cut down on errors in thinking and planning. And that is something that I could say from a brief read of one of his works. I can't quite remember which. It was that it was lighter on the exact technical stuff and more and very heavy on the practical wordy advice that is more easily understood by lower rated chess players such as myself.
Yeah. His most recent book, I think, was Silman's Chess Odyssey, where he shared his personal memories and portraits of players that he admired and that he met. And of course, he also wrote perhaps more than 100 columns for chess.com, instructional articles and whatnot. And another little known trivia bit was that he was brought in as a consultant for the chess scene in Harry Potter.
Very good chess game there.
And
I think he did some other. He probably did a few other scenes with stuff with Hollywood too. I mean, he's probably their go-to guy for chess scenes. And speaking of Hollywood in general, I mean, they need more of that, honestly.
Well,
they need to get chess right when they do chess. Otherwise, it doesn't really appeal to the chess audience in general, does it? I mean, that's why Queen's Gambit was so good. They really brought that feel in there for authenticity, and that was because they brought in Garry Kasparov.
And yeah, he really meticulously designed the games around real grandmaster struggle. I believe one of Sam Shanklin's games were used, and when Sam Shanklin saw the position on the board, he's like, he was relatively floored watching the series, because that's very impressive, right? That you would use actual chess positions, nothing that's made up. I think the only one that they flubbed a little bit, from what I understand, the first chess scene in the movie in the basement with
Mr. Miyagi. I'm just kidding.
I'm drawing a blank on the janitor's name, but
yeah, it could have been. Yeah. No,
it might have been Ariantari.
Mr. Scheibel.
But Mr. Scheibel, yes, I think that was it. And basically, the position on the board was Morphy versus the Duke and the Count. And one of the pieces that was supposed to be on the board was missing from the position. And I noticed it right away. I was like, oh, it's like they had done this scene so many times, or they reshot this scene so many times. The lighting was tricky, I believe, because it was supposed to be a basement. And I noticed the position had been altered ever so slightly, but the result was the same between Morphy and the Duke and the Count. And that was their first encounter. And she, unfortunately, was the Duke and the Count in that game.
Well, I have done the great impersonation of the Duke and Count many times in my life.
And then she dreams about
it. It's not the funnest, but yeah. It's like, I think I recognize this.
Being on the wrong end of the game.
I'm more Mr. Morphy. I'm not the main character here, I don't think.
Yeah, right. I'm not the Morphy end of this game.
Goodness me. Okay. Oh, no. He is using electronic devices.
Accused of cheating. Like, he's so good. He's like, this newbie guy just walks along and he starts beating all the best players in the world.
I know, right?
He does it just in 2 years. And then he retires,
Maybe
right? Very
should do a report on that or something.
Never to play chess again, and you're like,
Yeah,
they should actually run his games through the analyzer and make sure that he wasn't getting any assistance. That would be very cool to do, because I know that in my instructional streams, when I do, let's just say, Vasily Ivanchuk's games or any other prominent figure, for example, I will notice how often they are playing the best engine move in their games. And at the time, though, the game was played, there wasn't an engine strong enough to find these. You already know that they didn't. Like, Alicon did not have access to Stockfish, yet he's playing the number one move every time. And it's quite incredible. Like, when he needs to close it out,
there is something reassuring about not having engines back in the day, I guess.
But no,
you could never say, I was getting help from the crowd. Really? It was getting help from the crowd. Who's going to be better than you in the crowd? I mean,
right?
It's like, oh, it was good.
Exactly. Well, that was the scam of the Great Turk, the chess engine, the Turk. It was a box that was supposed to play chess against any and all comers in a carnival type fashion, and they had a chess international master
played Napoleon, I think,
inside the box because they didn't.
Yeah, all right.
They didn't have the technology to do it, right? Yeah, Paul Morphy's life, it was very sad, unfortunately, that he retired from chess the way he did, because he just wanted to be a lawyer in New Orleans.
Everyone wanted to talk. He memorized the entire legal code at the time. Also, he always wanted to talk. He wanted to talk law, and everyone was like, "Well, can we talk chess?"
Yeah, right. And he can't actually be. He can't actually do anything legal-wise because people would make bogus appointments with him to discuss law.
Yeah, I mean,
it's unfortunate that he couldn't escape.
Fun story, though. Wilhelm Steinitz met Paul Morphy in New Orleans, I believe, on the street. I mean, which is kind of a coincidence. I mean, a lot of these coincidences that probably aren't coincidences, but
well, I think I know for a fact he was seeking him out to find out if he had any interest in being world champion in advance of the 1986 World Championship match, which started, I believe, in New Orleans. Zukertort and Steinitz began that match in New Orleans and then traveled across the lower part of the United States. And they had several games in Birmingham, Alabama, and then they moved their way up through New Jersey.
One of those things,
and then
right?
They finished at the Manhattan or Marshall chess clubs. Oh no, they had to have finished at they finished at the Manhattan Chess Club. I just put that way because the Marshall Chess Club didn't exist.
It's like you go to New Jersey to play chess. What the heck?
Yeah, the Toms River Chess Club. That's the shot. Toms River Chess Club, scenic destination, which featured prominently. Actually, the Toms River Chess Club did feature prominently in Edward Lasker, not Emanuel Lasker's, the world champions, but Edward Lasker's biography, Chess for Fun or Chess for Blood, I think is the name of his biography, which I read cover to cover in my early years. And Edward Lasker was keen to sneak out to the local chess club when he heard that Emanuel Lasker was going to be giving a final, but his parents had grounded him for something he had done, so he actually had to climb out of the window and across the roof and utilize a tree in the lawn to get to the club.
No, that's quite justifiable.
Play a simultaneous exhibition, and I believe it was in the Toms River Chess Club. From what
have
I remember,
we any more stories have we any more stories to bring to today, or are we through all of them? I don't know. We'll go.
Well, the chess psychology gender bias study that was done for the trying to recall the name of the magazine.
Hang on, maybe. We haven't read through the article yet. I know we're well researched individuals.
I did read enough of the article to notice that Jennifer Shahade was one of the co-authors.
She always does have a lot to say on this topic.
The article that was
sounds trustworthy.
It was the Journal of Experimental Psychology General, the Journal of and I guess it's for psychology. Their chess informant, it probably comes out periodically with enlightenment into the fact that these things exist or these things are worth dealing with. Basically, while it's inspiring to see a fictional woman winning in a space dominated by men, referring to the Queen's Gambit Netflix series, apparently their study revealed across many interviews of several hundred coaches and parents that girls are somewhat biased against in the developmental stages. They assume that they're just going to quit chess and that they're their success will be limited, so therefore they don't get the
Right.
same attention that the young men do. And it's very unfortunate. I don't necessarily know the cultural
Yeah,
backgrounds
like who did
of
they
those that
interview? Why did
they
they
were
interview them?
interviewing, but I
Did they
definitely know
remove
that,
outliers?
let's
What
say, in many
questions did they
cultures
ask?
like
How did they
Spanish,
ask them? Did they like? I
yeah.
mean, it's like there's so many ways that this study couldn't be flubbed just because it's asking. I honestly feel if Jennifer Shahade's got some, no, I've got nothing against Jennifer Shahade, but I think if it's a study authored by Jennifer Shahade, I can say with most definitely that it's not an unbiased piece of objective fact. It's probably they're probably not intentionally looking for the results they're looking for. But if you walk with your head in one direction, you're probably going to be walking in the
Yeah.
if you
Well, the author of the article, the lead author of the study, is an NYU doctoral
right.
student
I mean,
by the name of Sophie Arnold.
I was thinking that.
No relation to Grandmaster Mark Arnold, one
Yeah,
of
I
my
was like
students.
that
But
sounds about right.
yeah, I know, right? It did
Wouldn't.
sound like that, didn't it? That's why I thought I'd throw in the disclaimer. There are a handful of
Yeah,
Arnolds running around,
Benedict Arnold
obviously,
is
and
a
it's a
one.
very
Sorry.
unusual and unique last name. But I do happen to be very good friends with Jennifer, and I have been in her company through over the decades, many times on many occasions, and I understand that you might think that it would be an unbiased, or it might be a bias, but interestingly enough, I've even had this experience with many coaches interacting with them
Yeah.
automatically. Grandmaster Joel Benjamin and I were in Argentina, right? And we are coaching both the girls and the boys teams in the Pan American Youth Championship. This was La Falda, I believe, in Cordoba, Argentina. It was just outside of Cordoba in Argentina in the mountain. And one of the
Old in Russian.
older
Wonder if there's
Russian coaches, whose name I'm going to leave out, he's a grandmaster. He's a grandmaster, and he was there coaching players privately. Walks by, and we asked what happened,
that
and
women
he
can't see
goes something
diagonals.
along the lines, and he basically inferred that he
Yeah.
didn't expect. Oh, that you remember the diagonal comment, but he basically also somewhat inferred that he had less expectation of success from the students who were girls than he did of them. And across the board, I have to admit that if they said they interviewed parents as well, right? I know that many of the parents, even in my communities, favor the sons over the daughters. I have one really cool and awesome student who may or may not have, what it takes to be a champion in the next few years. Time will tell. I believe that he does. He's got the passion. He's got some of it, right? But we don't necessarily know how it's going to play out or how much he's going to focus. But he happens to have a sister who is incredibly brilliant and who is incredibly talented.
Yeah.
And if she set her mind to it, right, she could be amazing. But the parents have no interest in taking them to chess tournaments or encouraging chess for her while they'll take the son. And this has happened in more than one household for me, where and now I'm going to refer back to my Norwegian success story. Maud Rodsmoen, who is a commentator for Norwegian television on chess. By the way, she's also a women's FIDE master, and she is the strongest chess player in her household. Was a somewhat of a side note at Columbia Grammar and Prep, where I taught, while her brother Ulrich, who I mentioned earlier in this podcast, was a very strong player. Ulrich was a very strong player, later to become a Norwegian junior champion. But she took, and I would kid him when I was there because she was very smart and she had the character and everything. I said, your sister is going to be amazing should she ever actually start taking chess seriously. Now she does it for a living. And I think Ulrich has moved on to other interests because he's a smart young man. I know that he's finding success in whatever he chooses to do. But I know that Maud did fulfill a little bit of the prophecy,
I do understand
only because she was given a chance. But I believe But I believe that many households just don't give their daughters the chance because
I
this
do
generational
have a
thing is holding
I do
all
have
of
a
us back.
slight like I don't
It's a
attribute
generational
to
thing,
I don't
thinking that
attribute
it's
to
a men's
malice what
game.
I can just attribute to like other things. For instance, I mean not that I'm attributing like not that I think you're attributing malice, but the point being I think that if you I think males, especially young boys, are just incredibly more competitive than and have less agreeableness generally. Yeah, agreeableness is a psychological trait that is way more prevalent in women. That is way more prevalent in women, and you
That
just
is
don't get the
common
same with
among
a
champions.
young male. They'll be
Yeah,
incredibly competitive, and their passion will stem from competitiveness. And I do think parents see that, and if the and whether it's right or not, they will tend to favor resources and stuff to someone who's showing very very clear passion. So I don't know if it's just a lack of. I mean, I would yeah like
well, I know where you're coming from. I do know where you're coming from. But I'll also mention that women have the ability to compartmentalize things and not necessarily over focus
mm,
on one thing or another sometimes, often better than men. They are able to compartmentalize. So, and I'm trying to think, I've had roughly 14 national girls and women's champions. Off the top of my head, I'm thinking that I've had 14 girls and national women's champions under my tutelage,
yeah.
and almost every one of them were very pleasant
I
and
think
nice, as you
I think it
said.
has.
But when they
I
went to the
don't know.
board, they became killers. They wanted to rip their opponents limb from limb, and they wanted to prove to the world that they were every bit of a champion. One of them, Lilia, who went on to MIT, won many girls. I think she won every girls' national championship from that was sponsored by Kasparov before she retired after MIT to work for Google. And another one whom I promote as an artist, a musical artist, Linda Diaz. She was the sweetest person on the whole, but at the chessboard, she was a tigress. She was always going after, and she was in fact interviewed by Jennifer Shahade at one point or another for U.S. Chess, and people can find that interview as she was playing in the National Chess Congress at the time. I believe she won that section for I don't remember if she won $2,000 or more, but it was
Mm,
not a women's section, and she
right.
literally took her opponents to the cleaners, and it was one of Bill Goichberg's continental chess events. I do believe that it's exactly
Stereotypical.
our
Yeah.
I'm afraid that
Oh,
it's
thank
not really you. It's also me. It's also me that we have this expectation that is brought to us
Yeah.
generationally
So like okay,
that
my only
is
real point here is
playing
with
into it.
sociological studies. I mean, they're so hard to do. It's like dietary studies, so hard to do.
Yeah, they're so hard to do. Like,
Yeah, I
is
know,
this a real?
but then if
Like, they're telling us something
I've
that we
always
may
said that
already
common
know.
sense is sometimes just a disguise for no facts. I mean, if it's commonly known, doesn't mean it's right. So so if like because I think that
I know, and
well,
I'll
I
also
know,
mention
yeah.
that common sense isn't really all that common. It's a
I mean,
people have a lack of common
I
sense
would
all
say
the
in general,
time.
if sociological studies are hard to
But
do
in
anyway, and
general,
then you've got and then you've got a very biased. Like I'm not going to say the main author of the thing is biased. Don't know her from a bar of soap, but I do know Jennifer Shahade. I know what she generally thinks. I know that if you do a study while knowing some while kind of knowing something to be true in your head, you're going to find the results you want to find, whether or not it shows itself in the data. You're going to start making hypotheses to explain outliers that maybe don't exist.
it's true that this is a common thing, a common hurdle. In fact, I would say that is this the I'm looking for the paper's senior author. Fortunately, is Andre Simpian, a professor in NYU's Department of Psychology, and the paper's senior author, which I guess something. For just a brief moment, as you said that, I was looking around to make sure that all of the authors were not women. But I understand what you're saying. I do believe that you may have the ability to be, let's just say I'll stand up for Jennifer in the sense that I believe that her her treatment to this particular study was meant in good faith to be objective. So therefore, I mean, what I have a problem with is that, and she actually says the statement in the article, would you be interested in participating in an activity where your potential is already downgraded before you even get to start playing? And this happens to me quite a bit. I had a student who could have been I had a student who could have been a grandmaster. This wasn't one of my female students at all. But I know that the student had the impression from the parent, because the parent didn't want him to be a professional chess player. So therefore, he didn't necessarily want him to achieve all the success that he could achieve.
Yeah, I mean, I just don't like that question.
So the parent is already inferring that in advance.
I don't like that question, though.
The lessons I'm trying to give him to become a champion.
It's like, if you have this set of thinking because of this presupposition that we have given you, would you do this? And it just feels like you're presupposing.
Yeah, but girls in general, it's going to be a generational thing for girls to tackle. Just like it has every other genre. There are just now beginning to be more women CEOs, and slowly more women are breaking into the business industry top echelon. And I would almost put it even at the same percentage. Like right now, I guess the study puts it as 13% of all players playing, U.S. Chess Federation players playing, are women. 13%. That means that 87% are not women. And the disparity between the genders can only be evened out, personally, to me, generationally, as we become more open-minded to being able to treat people. I'm gonna rephrase that. We're gonna
okay. I agree with you there.
We have to actually,
but then I have a point of disagreement. I don't think every disparity is because I think there's disparity in a lot of things because there's a difference between men and women. There is clearly a difference between men and women. I can say something innocuous and I mean and then somebody will be huffy about it a month later.
Well, I see the same difference. I agree with you.
Come on, really?
I believe that women are smarter than men on average, and they automatically know. They automatically know what's worth spending time on.
Starbucks is more immense value, apparently,
in the long run. So therefore, they look at this and go, all right, I've gotten just enough out of this to improve my decision making. Now I'm going to move on to bigger and better money making and career changing and goal oriented subject. I believe that because I remember I'm more along the lines of, and I'm going to touch upon my feminine side here. All right. Basically, when I was in school, and the boys in the class all knew the statistics on every baseball, this guy's earned run average, and this guy's RBIs, and this guy's that. And they would be banding it about, and they all knew all of this esoteric knowledge that was going to be absolutely of no use in the real world, right? This is something that boys do in school on average. Even Magnus Carlsen, I think, memorized all of the counties and the cities and the flags of the local regional provinces of Norway. So he memorizes all these provinces and stuff like that. But ironically, I know for a fact that I said to myself, I don't know what use this is to me. And why would I even want to do this thing? And maybe it's because of that I never became a grandmaster, right? But on average, you can't get the female part of the chess class, or I shouldn't say the chess class, the female part of the school to do it. But there would be a few anomalies. And I'll even say 13% of the school's girls were interested in the
Right.
baseball results
I
from the
mean,
previous night.
to be fair, I think you may
No, I don't know.
think you're
Just
proving your point there, but I think you're proving my point, and I'll tell you why. I'll tell you why. I think that that
no.
baseball is the baseball
All
analogy is
right.
evidence of the male's ability to be obsessive about stuff, and that ability to be obsessive will show itself more likely in chess
Right.
than for
Is what
females,
drives you.
and I think that's why I think a level of obsession is absolutely needed to be great at something. You know, the only difference between me and Magnus Carlsen is a lot of motivation and more obsession. I mean,
Right.
oh yeah, and for that from a young age, and probably a few other small bits and bobs. But I mean, big bits and bobs. But you get the idea, you know. If you you know, it's if you train a kid to
Right.
be obsessive and they have and they have and the higher
Yeah.
numbers of one group are more obsessive
I'm
than
gonna.
the others about one thing, well, they're going to be better, aren't they? For instance, I mean, if you got those boys and you said, "Well, here's $100, and then
They
can
are.
you do some sports betting for me?" That they might have a better chance than the people who weren't talking about baseball.
Yeah. No, I can see exactly what you're talking about, but I think that as a and absolutely you've hit upon the obsessive compulsive nature of the interest in a sporting endeavor or the interest in the competitive nature. Absolutely, it's definitely night and day often between students of those backgrounds to a certain extent, and it's the same thing that drives them to really learn the nuances of chess too, to really be able to put in the time to the end game patterns and the time to the
Yeah.
tactical and combinational patterns. I do see it. I do know that the girls were capable of it because
Mm,
many of them did do the work and they did become
yeah.
national champions. So I know that it can be done. I also know that it was my expectation that they would become national champions. Like even when the odds were stacked against them, I remember Callie, one of my favorite students, as she later went on to Harvard. I was very, but I'm just only mentioning that because it attests to her intelligence level. But at the same time, she could not move fast. Like literally, she would run out of time in almost any time control that wasn't game 90. She would just literally run out of time. So prior to the national championships, I had her playing 1 minute games. So she had to play 3 1 minute games every night, followed by 3 5 minute games,
Well,
and then
things are
one
dire when
50 minute
John
game. And she had to do this
tells
for
you
the
to
two
play
months
ball.
prior to the national championship. And the goal, this is a really good technique, by the way, for people, because by the time you get to the 15-minute game, your mind is racing and you think that it's game 90 for a 15-minute game because you've already experienced having to do the decision making in a bullet game. Now, the goal of the bullet game wasn't to win. She was never supposed to win. This is the hard part for many parents to understand. When you're playing online chess and learning, the goal is not to win. The goal is to play the best possible game, even if you flag. And so, therefore, she had to A, in 1 minute. Now, this is not a 1 minute game. What people think a 1 minute game is 1 minute long. It's actually 2 minutes. You get to think on your opponent's time. So, her goal was to think on hers and her opponent's time, and she was supposed to finish the opening and start a middle game on an even basis. Basically, she couldn't have given up too much of a space advantage. All the material had to be equal. And if she did that, I would consider it a win among the three games. So her goal was to get 1.5 points in
Mm,
our later evaluation of the games that she played each evening. Based on those, so those are just the three bullet games, and then the three, which I think they were 2 minute games plus 12 seconds or whatever. They were, or 5 minute games. Let's just say it was a 5 minute game. But it was played on the ICC. She was playing these every evening on the Internet Chess Club, the chessclub.com. And she was basically, her goal was to get through a certain portion of the middle game with an equal or no disadvantage, or hopefully be up in material. Ideally, if she were up in material and had a winning advantage, even though she was going to flag, because it was
right.
inevitable that she was going to flag 6 games a night. She's going to flag 6 games a night, every night. But she has several goals that she has to accomplish she has to get every piece active, to have a good opening setup based on things that we had discussed. And she did it. And then she gets to the nationals. And I remember when she calls me, I didn't go to that particular girls' nationals so many years ago. But I remember she called me, and I saw that phone call come in late Saturday night that she had lost one game. She won several games, and she lost the Saturday night game. And I said, do not think about this, because someone is going to beat your opponent tomorrow, and you are going to tie for first. And that's exactly what happened. She won her 2 remaining games on the Sunday, and her opponent, who is a young lady from Hunter, also a very sharp Hunter Elementary here in New York City, another very sharp student of the game, did lose, and they shared the billing and the program book the following year as co-champions, which was very lucky, right? Because obviously if it were up, I mean, I don't necessarily know, but literally she had to keep her composure and accomplish her goal and her task. Now, this was someone who literally did not necessarily have the skill level when it started out, when we first started working together, to accomplish her goals, but through training and, altering your expectations and learning, I know that she had what it took. And she was very, very ferocious at the board, whereas away from the board, as you said, she's the sweetest, nicest person that you could ever, an accommodating person that you could ever imagine. But at the board,
I only have the slightest point to make.
And there were many like I
only have the slightest point to make. There's no, well, every study that's been done that I have seen and been analyzed. It goes much like this. The women there tends to be a bell curve. Women's, and in math, we'll go for math for instance, tends to be almost a perfect bell curve. They all seem to be fairly decent at it, right? But then when you go to the men's bell curve, it's a very different. You don't have everyone's reasonably good at it. You have either people are like me and completely terrible at it, complete shit, or they're amazing at it. So it's not a bell curve. It's a slightly, it's you're either really good, like
right,
or it's not.
There's a vast majority of the population
there's a very different
there, yeah.
They're a very different group of people when it comes to intellectual pursuits like that. It's a very, very different, yeah. So, but it evens out. It evens out.
I do believe
they both become equal after a certain point, because some of the men being bad at math, well, equal, that takes away from the people who are amazing at it, and it all evens out because the women have a nice big median.
Right. Yeah. Well, the problem that I have is that we just don't. I also believe in the broad base theory, that there's just not enough of a broad enough base to push the women that are, as you mentioned, in the bell curve as high as the men. If there was a broader base, I believe that women could be further up the totem pole of a broader base if there were more women that were involved in the sport itself. And the same thing goes for, I was just reminded of Judith Polgar's comment. She is also of the same opinion.
Not the same as
that if women are more welcomed into it, then the drive up toward the top would be greater. Like, for example, I think her expectations of women's champions, not unlike Hao Yifan, like only later in her career did she start playing against the men. The fact is that the women's only events are kind of keeping, while are good, because it's a little bit of affirmative action to try to make sure that the girls will always be playing in an event where they'll find the competition welcoming, because they're all girls events. But at the same time, it keeps them from reaching higher and higher heights because they don't have the interaction with the stronger men players, which I think over time, I am confident that, crossing my fingers, before I turn 40, many decades from now, before I turn 40, some decades from now, there will be several women reaching new heights, not unlike
I would like
the
to make a
Indians
bet with you on
breaching the
that one, but
2700 barrier.
like I believe my theory is quite correct. Well,
Before
I
I
mean,
turned
not that
40, the
specific
thing
part,
would be
but we
before I
could do that.
turned 40. Well, that's like a.
You know? I do. I believe.
Right?
Uh,
Anyway, Rogan. Yeah, I agree. I agree with you on many points, but at the same time, I do believe that an open and welcome
I
teaching
mean,
community and
I
expectations
think
by
it can't
parents
hurt,
certainly
but I
can't
don't think
hurt.
it's going to help as much as I am of the firm opinion. I have the firm opinion that all the sociological data says that there needs to be a large amount of obsession in a group of people for them to be for high level achievement. And I think there's a strong correlation between natural talent and calculation, and math generally. I mean, it doesn't go hand in hand, but
Hmm.
there is,
Yeah.
it'll be.
No, we've both had those experiences. Yeah.
Hmm.
That to be a
You
champion
have
of
to be leg it down.
Kasparov's
You don't. You
nature,
have to
you have to
not
be a
give a
bit
shit
of a
about your
jerk.
opponent. Does your opponent look uncomfortable? That's good. Yeah.
Yeah, you really have to not give a flying F about
Yeah.
anything, you know?
You got to
Like,
believe that
just
you
like
are the
the
best.
freaking fracking
Anyone
fuck.
else who
I'm going to
thinks they're the
kick this
best is
guy's
a goddamn
brother
imposter,
or a
and that
girl's.
you've got to take every advantage you. Yeah.
That's right.
It's like delusion with talent to back it
Exactly.
up.
And that's what it takes to reach the highest of
If
heights.
what?
And not everybody has it. Not everybody has it.
Yes.
But we only have so much
Good
energy to
drugs.
focus in those directions. So that's the end, be all and end all of it. You only.
Yes.
But in any event, no, I think I believe that about covers it. I knew that this would be the.
Oh yeah, there's probably a reason that Chess Chopin isn't joining us. He's like, Rogan's just gonna talk our ear off for 3 hours, and it's gonna be horrible.
It is trickier, I have to admit, because while he might be the accommodating / third party, and I miss him being here to be able to weigh in as the objective voice, the disembodied voice of Chess Chopin.
Yeah, I don't like being a stalemate.
We missed our tiebreaker.
Chess Chopin, right. Placate everyone. Agree with both of us. Yeah.
Right. Exactly.
No, we gotta,
Meanwhile, he's devising his own podcast right now to try to square us away.
We're gonna have to get him to sign a non-compete or something.
Yeah. On that same note, when we were bandying about with Jennifer, I was thinking of asking Jennifer
you'll never see me shut up
faster. Her opinion in person. That way you can. What's that?
Yeah. I was just like,
where did?
Yeah.
Where did Rogan
look
go?
At that crisis? Oh no! No! I suddenly had a change of heart.
You there? What?
Something. No, you're completely right, John. Sorry if I questioned you.
But I will tell you something. If you when you do get a chance, and I know at some point in the future, I would only hope that you do get a chance to meet Jennifer. You would know that she has that eye of the tiger type personality to win the U.S. Women's Championship among the category of men that I mentioned in a previous podcast.
Yeah.
She literally played against the men to become U.S. Women's Champion, and she kicked everybody's butt. And that particular U.S. Women's Championship I hold in much higher regard than many, many, many of the others, because the Microsoft sponsorship that brought those 64 players together each year for several years in a row, I don't know that it lasted longer than 3 to 4 years, but they were literally pumping hundreds of thousands of dollars in prize money towards 64 players. Everybody got paid for going, by the way. There was no appearance fees. So like the last place person got like $1,500 or $2,000 in every. So I think everybody got $2,000 from whatever place, from 40th place to 64th. So 24 people got a minimum of $2,000, and then the prize money ascended from there all the way to the top. So they handed out like $60,000 worth of prizes automatically to the bottom, 30 people, give or take. I'm just rounding off. and then they pumped up the prize money. So you went there with a budget in your mind that you had to get there and accommodate yourself for a couple of $1,000, and you were basically playing chess for a couple of weeks or for 9 days for free. I don't know that they didn't have 2 rounds on any particular day or an off day. I have to look back to see what the format was in one of the articles, but I was very impressed that Microsoft managed to pull it off, because the 14 women that were invited, the top 14 women, were playing against the men in the same championship for the women's title, and whoever was the last person standing was definitely going to be the one. I still believe in that in most championships. I wish the women's and the men's candidate cycle were actually played together. Can you imagine if the women got literally, they experienced the brutality of playing like a collective Skavenigan match.
The real feminist are.
And for the viewing or for the listening audience who doesn't know what a Skavenigan is, but they don't know what a Skavenigan is. It's when you have 6 players on one team playing 6 players on another team, and they never actually have to play against each other.
So is it like a mixed team, or is it?
So interestingly enough, in the candidate cycle, it's not unlike the veterans versus. Yeah, but basically it's like a round robin. So you could have 6 players playing 6 other players. The common Skavenigan in the past has been where the 5 or 9 players on one team, and you can do this for norm purposes, would play the 9 members of another team, and you'd play an entire round robin against the opponents, one game after another. And unfortunately, in this particular case, yes, the women would be playing against each other at various moments, so it wouldn't be a true Skavenigan. But at the same time, in a candidates tournament, if they actually had the men and the women playing against each other, yes, all of the women would have to play all of the men in a round robin, and they would all have to be able to perform, and they would basically learn how to play chess at a higher level over the board the hard way. And those that would succeed would be the true and rightful candidate for the World Championship.
I think everyone's a feminist until the house fire happens. It's until the Titanic's going down, everyone's a raving feminist. I think even the women players would have. They wouldn't. I think the women players would be in no, thank you. I wanna not be beaten into the ground, because it does take a psychological toll being beaten. No matter by who, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter by who. If you,
that's true, but you're going to get an opponent in that tournament that is going to be within your reach, because you're going to have the same. Let's just say there are 6 candidates for the women's tournament among the 7 or 8 men. So you have a 13-player round robin among 14 players, or whatever it might be. Right, 8 plus 6, yeah. So you basically have a 13-player round robin, and the highest standing woman is the woman who qualifies for the match for the women's title against Zhu Wenjun, and the highest male. So obviously the men have to theoretically win. If the men are beating the women, everyone is responsible for that action. It's not unlike how I think Yasser Seirawan told the story in an interview for C Squared podcast, how Roman Djindjashvili was playing blitz chess with Cameron Shirazi throughout the U.S. Championship all night long for whatever money, right? And in the last round, Cameron and Gingy had to play, and you only got money for the points that you scored, I believe. And Cameron was 0-13. He didn't have any money. He didn't have any necessarily prize money coming to be able to pay Gingy's his gambling debt to Gingy. But Gingy, and this is Yasser's account, had to give Shirazi a draw so that he would have some money with which.
I mean, while we don't condone gambling, and it is an addiction, we do need that gambling company money. So, only if you think you'll win.
We do advise everyone to gamble responsibly, and if you do have if you do think you have a gambling problem, you should
that
be
waiting music can be really motivational.
Giving in the show description down below.
Okay, goodness gracious. I mean, I don't know about all these. You're more progressive than I, John.
Wow, I think we covered almost everything. Only because I've had so many girls national champions, and my other favorite was coaching a senior member of the Marshall Chess Club for the women's senior championship, the Women's World Senior Championship, one year. And I got a lot out of that relationship, quite a bit. And I was very happy that she called upon me to help prepare her for it. And then when she came back from the Women's World Senior, she actually had a fairly decent result. But I mean, there were some crushers and killers in there at the highest levels. So there wasn't, she didn't have that huge of an expectation, but she came back saying that it was a hugely successful experience with all the prep coming through and everything. So it worked out well. So I've coached of all ages to a certain extent of female players for whatever reason, for their goals, and I do expect them to kick butt.
Being aggressive.
It's not about being progressive. It's not about being progressive. It's about just expecting. It's about being able to oppose. It's about being able to impose that successful expectation.
So it's like
training upon the student.
So what you're saying, John, is like chess Cobra Kai,
regardless of age or gender.
No, I'm kidding. Just accept it, John.
I'm not saying that. I'm saying that this is what all good teachers do. Yeah, there is no doubt in this dojo. All right, there is no doubt. Doubt does not exist in this dojo.
Yeah. We'll wait a few years before you get the merch going. Having merch before you're ready for it. It's just You're already.
Yeah. I've got the slogans ready. Natural moves.
Already a whiz on the marketing. I can tell you that.
But doubt and lesser expectations are not going to help you accomplish your goal. And if anyone around you has that baggage while you're trying to set about your goals for accomplishments, it's just not going to happen. We're going to roll with it. I think you should just put it out like this. Don't bother with the. Don't bother with the.
We'll do the slightest amount of editing first.
We're going to do it.
Silence detection.
All right.
Yeah.
Yeah, the slightest amount of editing sounds great. But in any event, I hope everyone takes to heart their chess skills and
if anyone's still listening,
their best games from here on forward. All of our listeners with the utmost confidence. Yeah, with the utmost confidence. And the utmost expectation that all that lovely of their abilities will be revealed.
Right, okay. For all the people who are listening in the future, we love you. And John's book might be out by then. So if anybody's listening in like several months from like now, like 6 months maybe we'll go. A decade will be. No, I'm kidding. But John's book will be out by then. It's a very good book. I used it myself. I've got a copy of it myself. It's quite an amazing book.
That's right.
So check that out. Oh yeah, every day. 60 more variations. Just what I needed. Yeah.
Just what you needed. But I mean, there's going to be a lot more. I'm addressing the fundamental issues at the beginning just now with the basic problem sets that absolutely need to be accomplished. Previously, it's been for intermediate players honing their skills.
There's something that is ready right now, and that is your stream. Master Chess Dojo streams every single day, and not only does he stream every single day, he hosts a tournament every single day to honor one of our glorious chess people. Whether they be grandmaster or just or just a random streamer that he likes. Yeah. No, that's the one. That's the one. That's one that I'll agree
coming
with.
Soon. Don't forget Chess Kid Jr. I attempted to have a tournament for Chess Kid Jr. because he told me it was his birthday the other day, and so I set up an additional tournament, which didn't completely pan out because it was after I had to go to school. But I'm definitely trying to expand it. There was a time when I used to do 2 tournaments a day. Back when.
I actually do think
and it was insane. It was 6 a.m. and 6 p.m. Two streams a day with 2 tournaments a day. And then post-COVID, it wasn't.
If I was to give any advice, I'd say make the tournaments like longer time control when you can, so that people aren't like rushing from game to game, so they can come check you out a bit more. But that's just completely out of pocket, completely out of pocket advice.
You're absolutely right. That's actually why I think the weekend tournaments at 5+5 are slightly more successful.
But yeah, I also stream too, not to toot my own horn over here. But
That's
Yeah, and
correct.
if I'm having a real
Kingslayer
bad
Sloan
day,
plays against viewers very entertainingly. I've most of the time when I've chimed in, you've had one of your regulars on the line, and I appreciate almost every amusing comment that I've heard
yeah. I mean,
when
well,
you're trying to
if I'm having
outfox
a
a
bad day,
viewer.
don't worry, I'll let you know, and you can just ignore me that day, you know. But sometimes
No, no. I'll give you a lot of credit because you play a lot of your viewers, especially on request, and I don't do that. By the way, I actually want everyone to play within the context of the Swiss system framework, and everybody wants to play against me in
yeah,
individual
you can
game, and I'm
steamroll
not
me
that
any
guy.
day,
Rogan
and
is your
I
guy.
promise I'm not
Kingslayer
seething on the
Sloan on
inside.
Twitch.
I promise Chess.com's not inundated with my report requests, just in case. Just in case.
Right,
Yeah, it might be. I don't know. If he's got nothing to hide, he's got nothing
right.
to fear.
There you go.
That's my life motto, but which is a little bit Orwellian, but that's okay. Okay, so and also Chess Chopin not
All
here
right.
right now, but I do feel the need to say if you look up Chess Chopin, he is a music producer, and the little jingle at the start of this was most definitely his work. And what anything else? He also streams occasionally too on Twitch. And
That is Chopin as the
yeah,
composer. If you're looking at the spelling, it's Chopin as the
yeah, we
composer.
resurrected Chopin. Yep.
Chopin. Chess
We're
Chopin,
surprised
all
more
one
people
word.
haven't noticed, but yeah, but okay.
We
What
did.
else? Do we have anything else to say? Any things to tell these wonderful three people?
Nothing except that I just would like everyone to approach every game with every level of expectation of success, and that we can only accomplish what we believe is going to be true, and that visualization toward success is key. And I know that every one of our listeners is going to accomplish their goals
So
in the near
visualize
future
success
through
and also
diligent
visualize
and determined
defeat and
application
be
of their
okay with
skills.
both. I mean, you got to be okay with both.
You're
Both
such
things.
a realist. No, obviously defeat
Yeah,
is
well,
part of the game, but
I
defeat
mean,
is designated for the opponent.
I've come to the realization in my chess journey I may not be the main character, but yeah, but that's okay.
I hear you.
Yeah,
In any event, have a good night, everyone, or a good day, depending on what time of the day you're listening to this. Thank you, Rogan, for all your hard work. This is going to be probably the
yeah, we're
longest
probably
and
going to do
best
two
chess
parts. Part one
podcast
is 1
that
hour.
we
Part
have
two,
put out.
no, okay, no.
Enjoy, everyone.
Okay.
No, we're not.
Oh,
No, don't do it.
amen.
Let's see how it's received. Let's see how
Yeah,
it's received.
like
All
13
right,
different little parts.
let's do one without two parts and see what happens.
Okay.
All right, let's go
Yeah.
for it.
See you later, ladies and gentlemen.
That way, that there's no sequitur, and
Yeah.
we'll put a
I
time
can't
clock
wait
on
3
ourselves
hours.
for next
There we
time
go.
to make sure that it's a little lower. All right. Yes.
Oh yeah.
Also, we're making up for some long lost time. So if we do this a little more
You know
frequently,
us. I mean,
we'll have a better chance. But my wife's working hours have changed, so it may actually be possible to return to our normal
communication.
schedule next week. I'm going to find out, and I will keep you impressed. We have a holiday weekend here, but she's switching jobs, so my grandson's needs will be less intrusive. And actually, my streaming schedule will be less interrupted. Believe it or not, although Rogan has said that I stream every single day, since the start of the school year, I have missed a day here and there throughout the week because my
we're allowed to
grandson
lie.
needs to
I
get
mean,
his
it's
breakfast,
we're not
and
under
I need
oath
to get him
here.
off to school. No, but I did have
I
a
think I have
nice
a
streak
streak of
going
3
of like
days.
60 days straight without missing a single day.
Yeah, I
for
mean,
me
I'll be like,
to
I'll
sleep
just
in.
stream in the morning if I miss one here. If I'll stream at night, I miss this one there. I've always say, oh, I'll stream in the morning, I promise, and then I never do. I just stream at night. It's like,
Right.
It's self-control I lack. Goodbye, ladies and gentlemen. We have kept you long enough. God bless, and have a great day.
I understand. Have a